The night I found out my fiancé was cheating on me, I didn't scream. I didn't throw his clothes out of the window, and I didn't call the other woman. I just stood in our kitchen at 11:47 p.m., holding a glass of water, listening to the man I was supposed to marry whisper, "I love you too." The voice on the other end belonged to my best friend, Claire. My name is Emma, and until that night, I thought I had the perfect life. I was 29, had a good job in Chicago, a beautiful apartment, and a fiancé I'd been with for 3 years. Daniel had proposed 6 months earlier, and our wedding was only weeks away. Everyone around me thought I was lucky. I thought so too. Until that night, Daniel had told me he was having dinner with a client and would be home by 10. He came home almost 2 hours late, smiling at his phone. When he went to take a shower, he left it on the kitchen counter. I wasn't planning to look at it. Then the screen lit up. One message appeared from Claire. "I miss you already." Before I could even process it, another message came through. She didn't suspect anything, right? My hands started shaking. I opened the conversation, and within minutes, I realized this wasn't some recent mistake. They had been seeing each other for months. There were hotel reservations, secret dinners, pictures, and conversations about me. But one message stopped me completely. Daniel had written, "Once we're married, she'll let me help manage her trust. Then we can finally stop worrying about money." Claire replied, "Just don't mess this up. My mother's trust." That was the real reason. My mother had died when I was 19 and left me a trust that I couldn't fully access until I turned 30. Daniel knew about it because I trusted him enough to tell him. Suddenly, every question he'd ever asked about my finances made sense. The expensive wedding wasn't just a wedding. It was a plan. I sat at the kitchen table until the shower stopped. When Daniel came out, he kissed my forehead and said, "Sorry I'm so late." I looked into the eyes of the man I loved and realized he had no idea that I knew everything. I smiled and said, "It's okay." That was the first lie I ever told him. The next morning, I called an attorney. Her name was Susan Reynolds. I showed her the messages and explained everything. She told me not to confront Daniel yet. "If he's really after your money," she said, "don't tell him you figured it out until you've protected yourself." So I followed her advice. "You're the only person who can." I almost smiled. "Why would I do that?" He looked at me. "Because you're the only person I trust." I laughed softly. "That's funny." He looked confused. Then I opened a folder on my desk and slid it toward him. Inside were copies of every message between him and Claire. His face went white. "You knew," he whispered. "I knew before our wedding." He stared at me for several seconds. "Emma, I can explain. You don't need to. I loved you." I shook my head. "No, Daniel. You loved what you thought I could give you." His eyes filled with tears. "I made a terrible mistake. You made a choice." He looked down. "What about Claire?" I asked. He went silent. Then he admitted something I hadn't expected. Claire had disappeared months earlier. She had taken money from his business, drained several accounts, and left him with even more debt. Daniel had trusted the woman he betrayed me for, and she had betrayed him too. For a moment, I felt sorry for him. Then, I remembered the message. "Emma will get over it." I closed the folder. "I'll buy your company." His eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes, but you won't work for me. You will sell everything you own, pay what you can, and walk away." He stared at me. "Why would you do that?" I smiled. "Because 2 years ago, you thought you were going to take my future away from me. I want you to understand something. You didn't." He lowered his head. I stood up and walked toward the window. "You didn't destroy me, Daniel. You just gave me a reason to become someone you could never control." He didn't say anything. When he finally left my office, I watched him disappear into the elevator, and for the first time since that night in the kitchen, I felt completely free. People think revenge means making someone suffer. It doesn't. Sometimes revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal define you. Daniel wanted my money. Claire wanted my life. They both lost everything because they believed I was too trusting to fight back. What they never understood was that I wasn't weak because I trusted them. I was strong because once I discovered the truth, I had the courage to walk away. I never got married. I never got the perfect love story I thought I wanted, but I built something better, a life that belonged entirely to me. And years later, when someone asks me what happened to the man I was supposed to marry, I don't tell them about the cheating, the lies, or the revenge. I simply smile and say, "He taught me the most important lesson of my life. Never build your future around someone who doesn't deserve a place in it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's standing so far above the life they tried to ruin that you don't even feel the need to look back."